Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Herrera with Sketching Graphs of Polynomial Functions. This is our work for Monday, 427, and this is page 259. So we only have three functions, and we're going to analyze them and see how to sketch them. So my first function is f of x equals x squared times the quantity x minus 2. I have two distinct factors. This one is a repeat factor, so I'm only going to list it once. And then I have x minus 2. So let's set them each equal to 0. Zero product property says any factors multiplied together that equal 0, one or more of the factors are 0. So x squared equals 0, take the square root of both sides, and so I get that x equals 0. Because it was a squared term, I know that this function is in fact tangent at 0. It doesn't pierce the x-axis, it's going to be tangent. Taking a look at the second factor, we have x minus 2 equals 0. I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and I find out that I have an x-intercept at x equal 2, which means it crosses the x-axis where x is 2. Now let's go back and look at one more thing. Since it is an odd degree function, we know that the end behaviors are opposite. What else do I know? Go back to the leading coefficient, your a term. If there's no symbol there, the assumption is that it is positive. It's a given that it's positive. If it were a negative function, they would have to give us that negative in the front. So that means that it ends up. He ends up positive. Positive people look at the sky. Remember that. They look up to the stars. So I'm starting on the bottom, and I'm going to go up. It does a little loop-de-loop, and right here at 0, it is tangent. So it's just going to touch in that one point. It's going to come back down again, and it's going to pierce the x-axis where x is positive 2. And again, where we got that was part of the given function. All right, and that's it for number 9. Going to number 10. When we're done with all of these, we can take a quick look using Desmos.com, which is a fantastic tool just to check your work. So for number 10, I have f of x equals negative the quantity x plus 1 times x minus 2 times x minus 3. This again is an odd function because I have x to the first times x to the first times x to the first, which gives me x to the third. What does an odd function tell me? That odd opposites. So I know that one arm is up and one arm is down. What else do I know? I have three distinct factors. I'm going to set each of those factors equal to 0. So I have x minus 3 equals 0. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. X equals 3. X plus 1 equals 0. I'm going to do the opposite. Inverse operations. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. I have another x-intercept at negative 1. X minus 2 equals 0. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And my third x-intercept is going to be x equals 2. So we know that it crosses in all three places because none of these are repeat factors. There's no squared there. Okay? So let's go back and let's take a look at what we have here. We know that it is a negative function because that negative leading coefficient right here, there should be a negative 1. So since this is negative, he ends up at negative. Negative people look at the ground or looking at the ants, as opposed to positive people look up at the stars. It's just a little mnemonic device. So he starts off up. He's going to come and he's going to pierce at negative 1. How do I know it's negative 1? Negative 1 is the smallest of my x-intercepts. It's going to come down. Again, I'm not as concerned it can come lower. We're just doing a rough sketch here. It's going to cross through at x is 2, and it's going to come back down, and it's going to cross at x equals 3. And that is my quickly sketched graph of number 10. Going to number 11. Last one, f of x equals x times the quantity x plus 2 squared times x minus 1. This one now is an even degree. It's called a quartic function. And so I have x, and there's x squared, right? See that? So that's x to the first, and x squared is x cubed times another x gives me x to the 4th power. It has three distinct roots because remember we said this is a repeated factor. So I have three distinct roots. I'm going to set each equal to 0. 0 product property. So x equals 0 for my first x-intercept. I'm going to minus 2 from both sides. So x equals negative 2. Again, remember that it's tangent at negative 2 because this factor repeats. X minus 1, I would add 1 to both sides. X equals 1 is my third and final factor. Almost done, guys. Even positive functions, they're both going to end up Again, when we had an odd function, odd means opposite, even means exactly the same, even or equal. So since it's a positive, and again, I know it's positive, there's no negative out front. Since it's a positive function, they're both going to end up positive. So how do I know what does it look in between those two endpoints? Again, I always look at my smallest of my x-intercepts, which is -2. We know that it's tangent at -2. It's a repeat factor. It's going to come up, it's going to go down, and it's going to pierce through x equals 0, the origin. And I know that because that's one of my factors. And lastly, it's going to come up, and it's going to come up at +1. So those are the three graphs that I'm expecting to see. And here's the explanation on how I achieved each of those sketched polynomials. Okay, just again, a little technique, a little help, and then we're almost done here. I don't like these to go on too long, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Desmos. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you each of them individually graphed. So this is your first one. I lied. This is your third one. Sorry, the glare is really bad right now. Must be the time of day. All right, so here is my first one. This is number 9. Again, I'm trying to get rid of the glare. There we go. Again, same function as mine. It's a little cleaner, but it's tangent at 0, and it comes back up through x is 2. Also, anyone who does not have a workbook, you can also just do this on a piece of paper. Give me some lines for your x and y axes, and all's good in the world. Okay, again, the glare, I apologize, but you can see it's going to come and pierce through -1, it comes back up at 2, and it goes back down at 3, and it ends up with an end behavior approaching -infinity because it's a negative function. And lastly, and then we're done for the day, and I have, this is an even function, so both end behaviors are the same. And so they both end up, and we have one repeat factor at x plus 2, which means it is tangent at x is -2. And then we have 0 and +1. Pierces at 0, comes up at 1, and we're done. Have a great day, guys. Go back and do any of your missed assignments. We'll see you again tomorrow, same time. Have a great day.